Hello, my name is Karen Kelly Lorenz and I am a transformation coach. Many clients that walk through my door have suffered from burnout or emotional fatigue. I have today with me Michael Edward Bradford, who is an international energy healer and a corporate coach. He's also an expert in energy healing, and he's also a author of 2 books. One called The Healing Energy of Your Hands, and his second book, or I think it's your 3rd book if I'm not mistaken, on the Mastering of the Human Experience, Your Soul's Journey on Earth, which is a fantastic book. And a little bit of a tidbit that I actually know is that he is completing his 4th book on
Intuition, Your Silent Thunder.
And one day we were just busy chatting, and we chatted about Michael has so many stories, and I just picture myself sitting around a fire listening to all these stories, and bingo, he's practically finished writing a book on Michael's stories, Michael's journey on Earth, basically.
My travels around the world.
Yes. But today is a discussion on preventing burnout and emotional fatigue. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you a question that many of us actually have, and many caregivers have, because we were discussing about caregivers. And a caregiver can be a nurse, a doctor, a policeman, a coach.
Or an energy healer.
Or an energy healer. Anybody, a parent. It doesn't only have to be a caregiver. It doesn't have to only be a caregiver. So my first question is, what causes burnout and compassion fatigue?
Okay, good question. Where I'd like to start is the bigger picture. Now, with the bigger picture, I'm talking about something I call the health equation. The health equation means that everybody and everything is related mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. So the mental is our thoughts, our attitudes, our belief systems. It also includes our languaging, how we process information and communicate information. Physical is nutrients we put in our body. I mean, do we live on junk food or do we eat healthy? Are we taking care of this physical machine of ours? Emotional. Are we emotionally centered? Can we handle emotional challenges easily, or do we get triggered and react? Spiritually, do we believe in a higher power? Are we connected to something more than ourselves? And energetically, how do we deal with energy fluctuations, energy changes? Because you now have coronavirus, other times you have other challenges with the energy. How do you deal with it? And are you protected energetically to where when things come to you, you can hold your center as opposed to getting triggered and getting emotionally off balance and energetically drained? Part of the challenge, Karen, is that once a person drops a level, that makes the person more susceptible to a further drop in energy. So in other words, let's say if you're at your peak and you have 100% protection and you drop energetically to 90%, it's much easier to drop to 80% than 70%. There's a lot of people that I've met that are energetically crashed. Now, the lower a person is energetically, or mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually weak, it's much easier for them to be affected by any outside event or other action. Now, I'm going to jump.
Can I cut in there?
Yeah.
I just picture, as you're busy speaking, as somebody walking in a hazard suit, you know, those big white suits with a mask on. I mean,
yeah. Now, that's perfect because that protects you physically, but it doesn't protect you emotionally,
true,
spiritually,
yeah.
energetically, spiritually. Because if you're a very compassionate person and you're working with someone that's in dire need, or a child that's dying, or a loved one, or whatever it may be, and you get triggered, or the person gets triggered, that emotional hazard suit, or that hazardous suit, will not protect you from the emotions.
Correct, I totally agree.
Right. So what's happening right now is people are feeling a lot of anger, fear, grief, loss, and their energy is dropping. We are only as strong as our weakest link. So wherever we are weakest, wherever we are not protected or strong, that's going to be our first drop. Now, when the first drop of energy happens, as I said, it's much easier to drop and be affected by other drops in energy.
Then why do a lot of caregivers and doctors or policemen, they feel drained or exhausted? I mean, I think of myself when I sometimes walk through a hospital just to visit somebody or to go fetch something at the pharmacy. I feel drained. I mean, what is that?
Okay, I'm going to approach that in a couple of different levels. Number one, whenever you're working with someone, you're dealing with an individual, patient, client, whatever you want to call it. Now, people that are in the system, be it a hospital, police force, or whatever else, you're also dealing with the management. Now, how comfortable are you? Are you being supported by the management? Are you in agreement with the way the management is functioning? Then you've got the organization, be it a hospital. Then you've got the system that you have to hold to. Then you have the legal. What legal implications are there if you do what you're guided to do, as opposed to what they're telling you to do? Then you've got your environment. Is the environment supportive? Is the environment energy clear? Or are you walking into an environment where you walk in and boom, your energy drops just because the environment is heavy? So there's a lot of different factors involved here.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of it, I mean, some of the clients that I have very, very stressful jobs. And some of them actually don't like what they do. And they are continuously sick or having to go for therapy, as in like body release, which is good for you, but for their stress. And as soon as they resign and they're doing something that they love, their whole life changes. So my next question to you is, what are some of your personal client experiences?
Okay, I would like to share some stories with you that tie right into this.
I know, and I've heard some of them. That's why I can't wait for you to hear what I heard.
When I was in Alaska in 1983, I went to a pub and I wasn't drinking, I just ordered some iced tea. So I'm sitting there relaxing, drinking iced tea, and all of a sudden I start getting dizzy, and I wound up getting the symptoms of a hangover.
Imagine that.
So I'm sitting there going, what is going on? And I turned around and the people behind me, sitting fairly close, were very intoxicated. So my energy field was too open. And at that point in time, like I said, it's 1983, I didn't learn about pulling my energy field in, protecting myself in a bubble, etc. I wasn't holding my center. So in that case, I was picking up the pain, suffering, anger, the other emotions around me. There's another time when I was at Yellow Thunder Camp, which is a Native American camp in South Dakota. This goes back to 1986, I think it was. And I just finished my vision quest with the Native Americans, and I was traveling, doing a road trip. And we arrived at Yellow Thunder Camp right around sunset. And we saw some kids riding bicycles. They were teenagers. And one of the guys was riding the bike, and there was a young woman, about 16, on the handlebars. And they hit a rock, and she went tumbling, cut her leg open. And I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "Please." And she sat down. I put my hands on her. At that point, I was still working with my hands as opposed to the way I work now. Again, 1986. And all of a sudden, I doubled over in severe pain with menstrual cramps. Now, I didn't know it was menstrual cramps. I said, "What is going on with you?" Because the pain was severe. And she said, "Period." And I went, "Got it." And like I said, I was suffering. I went down on my knees. I was hurting. And again, my energy field was too open. I had to learn, this is something I've had to learn over time, how to protect myself, how to change my thoughts, attitudes, and belief systems to protect myself.
Michael, I want to come back to the question of feeling drained and exhausted while walking through certain areas or hospitals. And what went through my mind as you were telling those stories as well is about lost souls.
Yep. Okay. Part of the challenge, and I'm going to talk about this from a spiritual level. Back in the olden days, thousands of years ago, you were not allowed to become a teacher, a healer, a shaman, a medicine person unless you knew how to work with energy. Most of that has been lost. It is not taught to most of the priests or the religious people. In my experience, the worst places for energy, picking up negative energy, or discordant energy, or grief or sadness, it's operating rooms, hospital morgues, funeral homes, and cemeteries.
Yeah, I was just thinking the very same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens in these places, people have died. A lot of the hospitals now, there's a lot of people that are dying. Old nursing homes and senior care facilities. So what's happening is those people are passing on, but because we're not taught anymore, or for most people, they're not taught that when you die, you just transition and you go into spirit or you go into another level. What happens is these souls wind up dying, and all of a sudden they go, "Well, wait a minute, no one told me about this. I don't know what to do. I'm wandering the earth as a lost soul." So again, the grief, the sadness, the heavy energy permeates these areas. And a lot of people that go or work in those environments will wind up being contaminated or getting depressed, and they can't figure out why.
Weren't you telling me yesterday also something about Notre Dame?
Yeah. Two of the heaviest energies I've ever went to or came in two of the heaviest energies I've ever come in contact with was when I traveled to France and I went to Lourdes. Now you would think Lourdes is a place of miracles and da-da-da-da-da. Well, when I went there, and I can't remember what year it was, I think it was 1994, 95, the energy was so heavy, I had to get out of there. It wasn't a place of lightness and peace and love. It was actually very contaminated and heavy, because people go to a place like Lourdes or Notre Dame Cathedral, they want a miracle. They're praying, they're letting go of their pain. God help me, da-da-da-da. And when they don't have a miracle, they get angry. Now, in addition to that, there are a lot of people, now I'm not talking about Notre Dame Cathedral in this case, I'm talking about Lourdes. There were blocks and blocks and blocks of plastic Jesus and plastic this and plastic that, all these different trinkets that people wanted to sell. So they were feeding on the tourists. They wanted to sell the tourist trinkets. And the energy was horrible. I could not wait to get out of Lourdes. That's how heavy the energy was. And I was grief-stricken. Now, when I went to Notre Dame Cathedral, this is go back before the fire. Again, this was 1995-ish. When I went into Notre Dame Cathedral, There were a lot of areas where the energy was clear and strong, but there was also pockets where I just was really, really heavy. Now, I'm going to share with you the heaviest, the single heaviest energy I ever felt. I'm getting chills all over my body, so I know this is extremely important for me to tell you. I went to one of the concentration camps outside of Berlin, Germany, called Stenhauser. And I have never felt any energy, the grief, the sadness, the fear, the trauma that was in the land, that was in the buildings that were still there, was so thick, especially around the crematoriums where they went ahead and gassed the people. The energy, it's going to take decades, maybe even longer. Now, as I've traveled the world, and I've been to over 50 countries, as I've traveled the world, there's places I've gone to where the energy is extremely heavy. Now, there was no battle, there was a massacre, torture, whatever it was that happened there.
Yeah, it reminds me when I went to the UK on holiday, I went to that museum. I went to a museum, the concentration, they had a museum over there, a huge museum. And I had to walk out there, I started crying. Also imagine yourself, and I'm sure many of you have either wanted to buy a house or rent a house, and you've walked in and you think, this doesn't feel right, I'm not comfortable here. Have you ever felt that? You know, with all your experiences that you've had with clients and your travels, your personal experiences, how do you help someone to avoid burnout and compassionate fatigue? How do you go about it?
There was a client I met, and she was very talented, very, very skilled. And she said, Michael, every time I go to teach, every time I walk into a room, I'm overwhelmed with the energies. I want to be a trainer. I want to be a coach. I can't do it because I'm so overwhelmed. And I took a look at her energy field. Now, the normal energy field for the average human being is out maybe 12 inches from their body to maybe 18 inches, 2 feet maximum. Her energy was out over 100 feet from her body.
Wow.
So this woman was hypersensitive. She was an empath. And her energy field was wide open. I would imagine that her energy field was open to around 200 feet. And what I did is I worked with her and taught her how to pull her energy field in, and then taught her how to, once it was pulled in, to zip it up like a Lycra cat suit.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, will you give us a tidbit on a demonstration on what to do and how to go about it?
Well, first of all, you have to be able to measure it to know if it's working. But with her, what I had her do is imagine that she was sipping on a straw. And I had her intention. So you have to use intention. Okay. You have to use focus and intention. I had her have a straw and go, and imagine her energy field come in. And I would measure and say, now, this is where it is now. Good. Now take it again. And I worked with her to teach her. Now, I can give you a bunch of tips, which I can do at the end. However, it always works best when I can work one-on-one with the client. Working one-on-one, I can help the person usually in 1 or 2 sessions. And then, of course, there's maintenance and support to make sure that it's being integrated. And Karen, one of the things that you said, which is very important, I'm also planning on doing a series on how to clear the energy in houses and offices. Now, this is the other point.
I find that very important because, you know, there's so many of us out there, and yes, you do Google research. But me, being a very practical, hands-on person, I like to see demonstration on how to do it. I mean, I had a client once, as Mike was saying, I mean, when she walked in, I could actually feel that her energy was way off, and she was actually leaking. And basically, I taught her to visualize stepping into a bubble and then visualizing zipping it up around her. But you know, it had to be taught how to do it. So it'd be awesome if you can actually run a series on demonstrations on how to go about it. It's a brilliant idea.
I'm planning on doing the house clearing and office clearing, land clearing. I'm offering a healer training workshops, intuition training workshops, and an apprenticeship program to teach everybody what I've learned over these past 50, 60, 70 years.
Fantastic. I say, how many times must I see you? And yes, if it's business coaching or corporate coaching, that is different, correct? But, and they say, well, can't we just come once? Sure, you can come once. You can have your energy cleared in that session. But as Michael and I were chatting yesterday, that people walk away and it's up to you to hold that energy, to have your energy clear. And what is your experience on that actually? Because Michael, you say you clear people within one session. However,
for me to identify the core issue, a lot of times I could do it within 1 to 5 minutes from the time the person walks in
and
the
I've
office.
seen it, and I've seen it because I have sat in a couple of your sessions. Yeah.
The challenge is not me being able to pinpoint the challenge. It is not about me giving you the solution. There is a series called the learning curve. So the first level is understanding there's a challenge. Second one is making a choice to change. Then it's about practicing. Then it is about integrating, and it's being automatic. So in the beginning, you don't even know what the challenge is.
Correct.
I help you pinpoint it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. You become conscious of it and you start practicing a new way of being. But it takes a while for it to become a habit pattern. For anyone that has ever driven a stick shift car, learned a musical instrument, whatever it may be, it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. Like I said, helping you to pinpoint and clearing the energy, that's easy.
Yeah, it's like I said to you yesterday, it's like taking a car for service. And you can't take it every 10 years. It has to be every 6 months to a year, depending on how far and how much you actually drive the vehicle. I am going to go, before we totally deviate, because it's just so much to discuss, I'm going to get back to burnout and compassion fatigue. I know you've given us some tips and pointers. I'm going to ask you again to actually list some things for the caregivers, especially now. I mean, what we're actually going through. The whole earth is crying out for that.
Okay, I'm going to give you 100% of what I think is needed.
Okay, great.
Okay. Number one, there are simple techniques like tapping your thymus, taking a hot bath with 1 cup of apple cider vinegar or 1 cup of Epsom salts or 1 cup of sea salts, swimming in a natural body of clear water like the ocean. Like when I want to rest and recharge, I take 2 weeks off and go snorkel and spend time in the ocean in the sunshine. Okay, a lot of times you can't do that. There's something even bigger. You can use, change your thoughts, your intention, say prayers, visualizations, do guided meditations. One of the things that I've been taught is about creating a column of white light through your body. Just imagine a column of white light, holding that energy, purifying that energy, not necessarily sending energy to other people, but you holding that center column of light and becoming a beacon of courage, confidence, trust and support within yourself. Now, I'm going to give you a few other tips that are going to be on the spiritual level. Number one, when I traveled over to Southeast Asia, before I left, one of the teachers I had said to me, Michael, remember, no matter what you're seeing, you're always looking at God expressing and creating. Or you can use the word spirit. You can use God's spirit. It doesn't matter to me. And for me, it doesn't matter what religion you're in, as long as you believe in a higher power or something beyond yourself. If we hold the image, the feeling, the sense that we're looking at victims, we're not serving the other person. When we're looking at God creating and expressing, somehow the other person feels that resonance, that support, that knowledge. In spirituality, what is being taught, and what I teach, is to go above the pain, go above the suffering. Be in the world, but not of the world. It's not about not caring. It's about caring, but knowing that what you're looking at, no matter how painful, no matter how sad, no matter what's going on, is a form of perfection for that person.
Yes, I was just about to ask you, because, I mean, you could visit a close friend, or you could know somebody is either in passing or going through dire circumstances. And I can walk away, I mean, I feel fine. I can have somebody say to me, your energy is not great. So, you know, saying to me, don't give your energy to that person. I go, what are you talking about? I'm not giving my energy to that person. You end up thinking that you're giving energy to that patient. So how can they, before they actually walk into the hospital, for example, I'm going to use the caregiver as an example, as in your doctors and your nurses, etc. How can they, before they even walk into the hospital, how can they protect themselves? What can they do to prevent subconsciously or unconsciously, giving off their energy?
Okay. First of all is to find out where the thought belief system is inside of them that says that they need to give from their essence. Okay. Now I'm going to do something. They go, oh. If you see a karate person or someone in martial arts, you'll see them go, oh. They're centering themselves. They're bringing their energy in. They're grounding themselves and connecting to spirit.
How do they do that?
Visualization, intention, and practice, practice, practice. That's why I'm saying that for me to work with someone one-on-one is a lot easier than just giving a bunch of information, because everyone is unique and different.
You do this online as well, don't you?
Yes, I can do it,
okay.
Zoom, Skype, video.
All right.
Okay. So it's about being detached and neutral without getting sucked in to the trauma drama.
Because, I mean, when you're busy working with patients and you're working with things, the last thing you think is, I don't want to get sucked in. I don't want trauma or drama. So it's, they actually sit there and go, what can they do, besides having to come see, it would be wonderful to come and see you or myself, whoever they need to go see. What can they do for now, in the meantime, to help them?
Love themselves. Know that they're doing everything they can possibly do. Find friends to talk to release. Let go of the anger, the fear. There's also the feeling of self-responsibility. It's my job to fix everyone. It's my job to help everyone. Do the best you can and let it be enough. Find other people that are aware, that'll help you to clear the energy, to align the energy. Karen and I, before we did this video, we sat down and we cleared the energy and aligned our energy, because our intention is to serve you. Our intention is to help you to awaken spiritually and every other way. Our intention, our focus, our prayer is to serve humanity. Now, if you're doing your best, there's an old statement, do your best and let God do the rest, or let spirit do the rest, or let your higher power do your best. Now, anyone that's in an NA program, AA program, any of the 12-step programs, believing and trusting in the higher power, whatever it is. And for me, God bless you, whatever you want to believe in, whether it's God, Spirit, Great Spirit, you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter to me, as long as you believe in something more than yourself. And if you don't, that's okay too. One of the other things, Karen, that I wanted to bring up, I can almost listen to someone and I can tell you where they're at, compassionate-wise and everything. Because some people talk about being a victim, or I can't do it right, or I'll never get it perfect, versus other people that are talking positive, saying, I really see the beauty in this person. The person who's positive isn't always complaining all the time. Their focus is on the positive. I
heard recently, or I actually believe it, or I read it recently, or I believe in it, is, correct me if I'm wrong, but your mind is a sending and receiving station of thought. I said that again. Your mind is a sending and receiving station.
Right. So in order for you to have a thought, okay, or when you speak, okay, first you have to think it, then you say it, then you hear it, and it goes back in your brain. So I'll tell you a quick story. When I was working in Bristol, I was using kinesiology muscle testing to show how the thoughts and attitudes and belief systems can create. And I said, I need a volunteer. I said, I want someone who's really strong. And all of a sudden, this guy got up in the back of the room going, oh. This guy was huge, about 6'2", huge muscles. And he was a professional wrestler and fighter. And he said, I'll be your volunteer. So he came up in front of the room and I said, put out your arm. And I was going to press on it using muscle testing, kinesiology. And I said, my name is so-and-so. Arm held strong. And I whispered in his ear, I said, alcohol. And he put his arm out, went right down. He looked at me, he was ready to break my neck. And I said, shake. I had him hold his arm out. And then I said something else, cigarettes or something. Arm went down. I did about a half a dozen times, and I thought this guy was going to beat the hell out of me. He said, how did you do that? Because I totally crashed his energy field by saying one word.
And that, I actually want to hold and pause it there, is energy field crashed. I recently was on the phone with somebody, and the news that I heard was, it struck very deep. And when I put the phone down, I asked the question, how am I at the moment? And it's Michael. And he said to me, your energy field just crashed. So, on that note, with the caregivers out there, with the parents, nurses, police, coaches, healers, watch your energy field. Watch those thoughts of yours, your energy field. And as when it crashes, that's you are susceptible to certain things. This show is coming to an end, so I'm going to ask Michael if he has a tip to actually part with us before we end the show. Michael?
Yeah, I want to share a couple of things, Karen. Thank you for asking, and I want to acknowledge your input. One of my favorite movies is Avatar.
Oh, I love it.
And in Avatar, the woman looks at the other man, or at the man, and says, I see you. I really see you. What would happen if we saw the perfection in other people when we looked at them? Forget what they're dealing with. Forget what their challenges are. Forget what the health issues are. Forget everything. And just look and say, I see you. And really mean it. And really see the perfection and the essence of that individual. Whenever I do healing, regardless of what the challenges are a person comes to me with, I see that perfection. And that's one of the reasons I get the results that I do. Because I'm calling that person's perfection into their awareness. I see it. I know that they are God's creating and expressing. I'm reminding them just by looking at them, and I don't even have to say anything. I'm calling their essence into awareness and alignment with perfection. The other thing that I would like to say and remind everyone, be detached. You can be compassionate, loving, but be detached and be a neutral observer. Be in the world, but not of the world. You will serve people more by being aware and being a friend without jumping into a hellhole that they're in. You do not serve them by jumping into a hellhole. You do not serve them by allowing your energy to crash. Be the role model. Be the example. See them for the perfection they're in.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very, very much. And remember what Michael said. I see you. And turn that around like a mirror and say to yourself, I see you. And acknowledge yourself and have compassion and love and self-love. I've just got nudged, yes.
And Karen, I see you.
Thank you. And I see you. So, this brings us to an end. Michael's contact details is going to be at the end of this video. And he's available, Michael's available for online and one-on-one coaching and corporate coaching. So give him a call and look after yourself. And till next time.
Please remember, you're worth it. You're very important.
Thank you.